released a brand new commercial featuring Caitlyn Clark and her new Kobe shoe that she released today. And I saw this commercial yesterday on social media. I thought it was so cool. There's a shot when she's in the locker room and she opens her eye and it like turns into what looks like a snake eye, but when you zoom in, it's actually the Kobe logo.
At exactly 10:00 a.m., the Nike app didn't slow down. It didn't glitch, it just completely died. 13,000 pairs of a brand new Caitlyn Clark Kobe shoe hit the market, and within 60 seconds, every single one of them was gone. Not in an hour, not in 10 minutes, 60 seconds. The resale sites lit up like a stock market crash in reverse, prices jumping from $190 retail to over $600 before most people even realized the drop had happened. And this wasn't even her signature shoe yet. This was a player edition, a teaser, a taste of what's coming. But before all of that chaos, there was a commercial. And that commercial had one specific detail that nearly broke the internet before the shoes ever went on sale. In the locker room, Caitlyn opens her eye, and the pupil shifts into the Kobe logo, like a snake locking onto its target. Subtle, cinematic, and absolutely cold-blooded. Now here's what I need you to do right now. Drop a snake in the comments if you saw that commercial and felt it. Because what happened around that 60-second clip goes way deeper than a shoe drop. And we're getting into all of it.
Stocked about 14,000 of these, and that is an unconfirmed report, but they sold out in less than a minute. If that's any indication of what a Caitlyn Clark signature shoe will do, I think Nike better continue to get on it and get ready to launch.
Let's talk about that commercial for a second, because the detail most people scrolled past is actually the most important part of the whole thing. Nike released what many are now calling Caitlyn Clark's first true solo commercial since she entered the Wnba. Not a cameo, not a group feature, not a blink and you'll miss it appearance in a broader campaign. A dedicated, cinematic 30 seconds of pure intent Nike production built entirely around Caitlyn Clark. And the execution. Honestly, it was cold. The scene opens in a locker room, dim lighting, the kind of quiet that exists right before something enormous happens. Clark opens her eye, and as the camera pushes in, her pupil morphs slowly, deliberately, into the Kobe Bryant logo. Not randomly placed, not a throwaway Easter egg for sneaker nerds. It was the visual language of legacy being passed, of one icon's DNA being woven into the next chapter of basketball history. If you didn't feel something watching that, you might want to check your pulse. The internet absolutely lost its mind. Sneaker bloggers, sports analysts, casual fans, people who hadn't watched a WNBA game in their lives, they were all sharing that clip within hours. Not because Nike told them to, not because a hashtag campaign was activated, because it was genuinely, undeniably cool. That is a distinction worth paying attention to, and we'll come back to it. What made this moment even bigger was the context surrounding it. For months, fans had been increasingly vocal about their frustration with how Nike was handling Clark's presence in their ecosystem. She'd been showing up in group rollouts, appearing alongside other athletes in multi-person campaigns, featured here, mentioned there, but nothing that felt like Nike was planting a flag and saying this woman is our next major investment. This commercial changed that conversation overnight. Advertising executives reportedly called it long overdue. Children just called it fire. And honestly, both takes are correct. The production quality, the symbolism, the restraint in letting the imagery speak without over-explaining. It showed a creative team that finally understood what they were working with. But here's where it gets interesting. This commercial didn't exist in a vacuum. Nike didn't just wake up one morning and decide to go all in on Caitlyn Clark. There was a long, expensive, and very public road that led them to this exact moment. And that road started with someone else entirely.
Finally delivers Caitlyn Clark PE. Is this the first Caitlyn Clark exclusive Nike commercial since she's entered the WNBA? I know she's made a cameo here, she's made a cameo there, she was featured as part of this rollout here, featured as part of this rollout there, but is this our first official Caitlyn Clark solo commercial since she has joined the...
2 years before that locker room commercial ever existed, Nike had a completely different story they were trying to tell. And to be fair to them, it wasn't a bad story on paper. It was actually a really smart one, until the market decided it wanted something else entirely. A'ja Wilson was Nike's chosen centerpiece for the future of women's basketball. And look, if you're building a brand around an athlete, Wilson is not a crazy choice. 2-time MVP, Olympic gold medalist, Charismatic, articulate, and genuinely talented in a way that makes highlight reels almost effortless. Nike poured serious resources into building her brand from the ground up. We're talking custom logos, unique color schemes, dedicated storytelling campaigns, and commercials directed by none other than Wnba. That is not a minor detail. When you're getting that level of creative talent attached to your campaign, you are being positioned as something significant. The plan was clear. Crown A'ja Wilson as the queen of women's basketball. Let the marketing infrastructure support that narrative. Let the sales follow. It was a logical, well-funded, professionally executed strategy. And it simply did not work the way Nike anticipated. Not because Wilson isn't talented. Not because the campaigns were poorly made. But because while Nike was busy crafting Wilson's hero's journey in a boardroom, Caitlyn Clark was out in the real world creating something that no marketing budget can manufacture: genuine, uncontrollable public obsession. During Clark's final NCAA season, she wasn't just breaking records. She was setting the record books on fire and watching them burn in real time. SportsCenter was replaying her logo threes on a loop. Every press conference moment became 1,000 tweets before the cameras even stopped rolling. Her presence alone was tripling concession stand lines and sending TV ratings into territory nobody had projected. Iowa's economy saw an $82 million boost during her senior season. $82 million from one college athlete in one season. The market was screaming. It was practically sending Nike a certified letter with a return receipt. And yet somehow, the swoosh was still focused on the plan they'd already written. It's the kind of corporate stubbornness that looks baffling in retrospect, but makes total sense when you understand how large companies operate. They commit to a strategy, and they ride it until the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. The evidence was becoming very difficult to ignore, but Nike wasn't quite ready to blink yet.
Across the board, this commercial was a 10 for 10, and a lot of people have been getting on Nike because they don't feel like they have been promoting Caitlyn as much as they should. But I will say we have to give credit where credit is due. I feel like in the past month or so, they have been tweeting about Caitlyn more, and then obviously with this shoe release, they made this super sick commercial.
There's a detail that still doesn't sit right with a lot of people, and honestly, it shouldn't. When Caitlyn Clark entered the WNBA, she came in with an 8-year, $28 million endorsement deal with Nike already locked in. $28 million. That is a landmark number for women's basketball. That is the kind of contract that signals to the entire sports world that a brand believes they are sitting on something special. And what did Nike give her to wear on the court with that historic deal in place? Recycled Kobe 5s, hand-me-downs, performance shoes, sure, but nothing personalized. No signature colorway with her name on it. No unique silhouette built around her game. No custom brand identity that said, Caitlyn Clark, this is yours. To put that into perspective, before Wilson's carefully designed signature collection had even hit shelves, those recycled Kobe's that Clark was wearing were already outselling it. A garage band was outselling the headliner. Except this garage band had an entire state of Iowa singing backup. The optics were genuinely strange, and fans noticed immediately. Now, some people argued that Nike was playing a long game, that they were building anticipation, waiting for the right moment, developing the perfect product before putting Clark's name on it. And there's some logic to that. You don't want to rush a signature shoe and have it flop. That can actually damage an athlete's brand rather than build it. But the problem was the timeline. The longer Nike waited, the louder the frustration got. Social media was not patient. Fans who were lining up to buy anything with Clark's name on it were watching her play in shoes that didn't even belong to her story. It created a weird dissonance between the magnitude of her cultural moment and the product Nike was actually putting behind her. One commentator put it bluntly, the sneakers were a year late minimum. And even when the Kobe collaboration eventually arrived, not everyone was completely satisfied. The argument being made was that Clark is big enough, impactful enough, and culturally significant enough to deserve her own original design for her first shoe. No collaboration, no borrowed legacy, just Clark, her name, her silhouette, her story. Which, when you think about what she's done in such a short time, is not an unreasonable ask. But before any of that debate could fully settle, the shoe dropped. And what happened next made every single argument temporarily irrelevant. At 10:00 a.m. on the morning of the drop, roughly 13,000 people got exactly what they came for. Every other person who tried got an error screen and a story to tell. The Nike app didn't just slow down under the traffic, it collapsed entirely. And by the time it came back up, the inventory was already a memory. 60 seconds. That's the entire window between the shoe being available and the shoe being completely sold out. Not 1 hour, not 30 minutes. 60 seconds of pure, uncontrollable consumer demand that the servers simply were not built to handle. Nike reportedly stocked around 14,000 pairs, though that specific number hasn't been officially confirmed. At $190 retail per pair, that's approximately $2.5 million in revenue generated before most people had even finished their morning coffee. And that was just the beginning of the financial story. Within 2 hours of the drop, secondary market prices had already surged between 100 and 220% above retail. StockX had them listed at $345. GOAT was showing $386. Flight Club was sitting at $375. And those numbers were climbing, not falling. People were paying double the retail price for a shoe that hadn't even been in anyone's hands for a full afternoon yet. The Google Trends data from that morning told an equally staggering story. Searches for Caitlyn Clark outpaced searches for Wnba Wilson by a ratio of 8-to-1 during the release window. The hashtag Clark Kobe didn't just trend, it went global, outpacing Wilson's corresponding shoe hashtag by a ratio of 12-to-1. These are not small margins. These are the kinds of numbers that make brand managers call emergency meetings and reassess every assumption they've been operating under for the past 2 years. Outside a Dallas sporting goods store, fans had camped overnight just for a chance to grab a pair in person. Overnight, for a player edition that wasn't even a full signature shoe. People compared it to Black Friday, except this wasn't driven by discounts. It was driven by one name on a sneaker tag. One athlete's gravitational pull was strong enough to make grown adults sleep on concrete outside a store on a weeknight. That is not a marketing campaign. That is a phenomenon. And it was happening while Nike was still figuring out exactly what to do with it. The resale chaos was only part of the story, though, because while all of this was unfolding, someone else was watching, and she was not happy. This is the part of the story that made social media go absolutely sideways. And it's important to be clear up front, some of what surrounds this topic involves public statements, some involve speculation that was circulating heavily online, and separating those two things matters. So let's lay it out carefully. Wnba Wilson, during the period when Nike's resources were being funneled heavily into her brand, made several public statements that were interpreted, fairly or not, as pointed commentary directed at the attention and opportunities Caitlyn Clark was receiving. In a Time magazine piece that got significant attention, Wilson's remarks were read by many as suggesting that Clark's rise was connected to privilege rather than pure merit. The comments sparked immediate debate, with Clark's supporters arguing that every achievement she'd reached had been earned on the court, in the record books, and in the ratings data. Now here's where it gets complicated. Reports began circulating online, and these are unverified claims that were spreading across social media at the time, suggesting that Wilson held an active Nike deal during the same period she was making those public statements. If accurate, that framing created a significant problem. The optics of publicly framing Clark's Nike attention as unfair, while simultaneously holding your own Nike relationship, was something fans latched onto immediately. Social media did not treat that alleged contradiction gently. Hashtags became battle lines. Fan bases started picking sides with the kind of intensity usually reserved for playoff elimination games. Cultural commentators weighed in. Sports media ran with the narrative. And Nike, sitting at the center of all of it, said virtually nothing publicly to address the tension between their two athletes. They didn't clarify timelines. They didn't release statements positioning both players as valued investments. They remained quiet, which, in the court of social media opinion, functioned almost like an admission of something, even if it wasn't intended that way. The frustration from multiple corners was real and loud. Clark's supporters felt she'd been left undefended during a period of intense public criticism. Wilson's supporters felt the entire framing of the situation was being weaponized against their athlete unfairly. And both sides had at least some legitimate ground to stand on. Nike's silence created a vacuum, and the internet filled it with everything it had. What the actual numbers said during all of this, though, told a story that was harder to argue with than any tweet. Strip away the social media noise, the hashtag wars, the hot takes, and the competing fan bases for a moment, and just look at the raw data. Because the data is where this conversation stops being about opinions and starts being about undeniable reality. During Caitlyn Clark's rookie season in the WNBA, road game venues that had been operating at roughly half capacity the previous year were suddenly filling up. Not just a little, filling up completely, in cities that had never shown that kind of sustained interest in women's basketball before. That is not a coincidence. That is one player fundamentally changing the economic reality of an entire league's road attendance figures. Arena managers were having conversations about logistics they hadn't needed to have in years. Television viewership numbers followed the same pattern. When Clark's name appeared on the marquee, viewership increased by more than 200% in comparable game slots from the prior season. 200%. That is the kind of number that television executives frame and hang on walls. It's the kind of number that changes how a network thinks about broadcasting rights and advertising rates. It's the kind of number that turns an athlete into a programming strategy. And then there's the detail that might be the most telling of all, the watch parties. In rival cities, local bars in cities that weren't even hosting Clark's team were organizing Clark watch parties because there was enough demand from local fans who wanted to watch her play on the road. Think about what that means in practical terms. People were gathering in a city to watch an away team's player perform in another city. The cultural reach wasn't just crossing state lines. It was making geography feel irrelevant. Former Nike basketball marketing executive Jordan Rodgers reportedly made his frustration with the company's handling of Clark publicly known, essentially calling out the organization for having the most influential player in women's sports on their roster, and failing to fully capitalize on that positioning while their own stock price was sitting at a 5-year low. The phrasing used to describe the situation was pointed. It was compared to watering your lawn while you're sitting on an oil well. The resource was there, the potential was enormous, and the response had been consistently, almost stubbornly, insufficient. Nike was reportedly running server stress tests using Clark-related traffic as the benchmark. That tells you everything about how the internal conversation had shifted. Nike is not a small company that stumbled into a bad decision. They are one of the most sophisticated sports marketing operations that has ever existed. They turned Michael Jordan into a religion. They made Tiger Woods synonymous with a generation. They built LeBron James into a global brand that transcends basketball entirely. These people understand athlete marketing at a level most companies will never reach. Which makes their misread on Caitlyn Clark not just surprising, it makes it historically interesting. The pivot that's reportedly now underway inside Nike's basketball division is significant, according to people familiar with the internal conversations. And again, these are reported claims rather than confirmed internal memos. The company is already accelerating development on Clark's first true signature shoe. Not another player edition. Not a collaboration using someone else's legacy as the foundation. A dedicated, original silhouette built specifically around Caitlyn Clark. Reports suggest a new last designed specifically for women's feet, a unique logo system, and a silhouette that would arrive in time to capitalize on the holiday shopping window. Manufacturing projections being discussed reportedly range between 100,000 and 150,000 pairs, a significant step up from the 13,000 pair player edition that vanished in 60 seconds. That scale suggests Nike is no longer treating Clark as a niche proposition. They are positioning her as a mainstream, full-catalog, multi-year franchise. And with international markets factoring in Kobe Bryant's legacy, resonates enormously across Asia and Europe. The global potential of a Clark signature line is something that nobody in the building is minimizing anymore. What Nike learned, expensively, is a lesson that every era of athlete marketing eventually teaches the industry all over again. You cannot manufacture gravitational pull. You cannot committee design the feeling that makes someone sleep outside a store overnight. You cannot A/B test your way into the kind of organic cultural moment that makes an app crash at 10:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. You can support it. You can amplify it. You can build infrastructure around it. But the spark itself has to come from somewhere real. With Clark, it was always there. The only question was whether Nike would recognize it before someone else did. They blinked just in time. But the cost of hesitating was measured in millions of dollars of unrealized revenue, months of unnecessary public controversy, and a cultural moment that almost got away entirely. What Clark represents now goes way beyond a shoe deal. And that's exactly where we need to land this. Here's the thing about Caitlyn Clark that no boardroom presentation will ever fully capture. She didn't build her following by following a plan. She built it by being impossible to look away from every single time she stepped between the lines. The The commercial, the shoe drop, the crashed app, the resale chaos, none of that created her. All of that simply revealed what was already there. Nike didn't discover Caitlyn Clark. The public discovered Caitlyn Clark and then waited patiently for Nike to catch up. What happens next is genuinely fascinating. If the Clark 1 drops with the momentum currently behind her name, it won't just be a sneaker release. It'll be a cultural event on the level of things we haven't seen in women's sports, possibly ever. And for a Ja Wilson, the path forward is actually simpler than the noise suggests. Lean into what makes her uniquely her, because authenticity always outlasts a trend. But the real question this whole story raises is bigger than Nike, bigger than Clark, and bigger than any shoe. It's this: how many times does a company have to watch the market choose before they start listening earlier? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll be reading every single one.